Hi, everybody, and welcome to another comic-centered, art-loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Glad on this episode to be talking with comics creator and I just found out fellow educator, David Whalen. David, thank you for joining the podcast.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I don't remember exactly how I came across your work, but I'm one of those people who scrolls through comics websites and I'm always sort of haunting the recommended lists on Amazon and things like that. And so somewhere along the way, I came across probably Offspring was the first thing that I came
Yeah.
across, being an epic work of yours, epic, lots of stories there.
Mhm.
And then you also have Loved Ones, I Won't
Yes.
Stop, and I'll stop there, even though you have other titles as well. You have several titles that are out and pretty accessible and available. So glad to talk about those and about some of your creating history.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. So, of course, the first question being the origin, the comic story, sort of. What connected you to comics, and how did you know it was the place for you?
Sure. Yeah, I think like so many other in my situation, I struggled a little bit with reading growing up, and somewhere along the way, my older brother and I, when I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, we would ride our bikes across town, probably farther than we should have. This was probably the early 80s, 1983, 84. So I was 9 or 10 years old.
Hmm.
And we would go, he was a big baseball card collector. So we'd go to this place called the Coin Shop that he would sit and he'd look at all the baseball cards and football cards and everything. And I had not yet found my love of sports at that point, so I kind of always made my way over to where the comics were. And
Hmm.
he always had a big pile of Archie comics and Mighty Mouse and those kind of earlier Disney key comics. He had a whole bunch of those from the 60s and 70s, and they were always 5 cents, so I would pick them up, and found that that combination of picture and words really helped me to get better at reading. I would read them out loud to my brothers and sisters, and and
Hmm.
talk to my parents were very supportive. They would talk to me about it and go, oh, look at that. Oh, why don't you try to draw that? Oh, what do you think of this kind of thing? So it was through that I kind of gained a love for reading in general, whether
Hmm.
it's comic books or whether it was choose your own adventures or other things like that. And my taste grew as I grew. But it was something that I had always um, gotten in trouble for in school was drawing. I draw on my math homework. I draw on everything. I draw on everything to the point where my parents gave me a section of wall in our basement that was in our playroom in our basement. They
Oh
gave me a
yeah.
section of wall, taped it off, and said, "This is for you. Do whatever you want with it." And I did. I would fill it up, and we'd paint over it, and I'd fill it up again. And it was a very supportive environment for me to be able to communicate visually in that way, which helped me in with schooling, in a lot of aspects of schooling. So as I grew older, just kept my love of comic books and kept my love of reading and drawing. And by the time I was maybe 9 or 10, I can remember kind of grabbing up my buddies and saying, let's draw a comic book.
Hmm.
And within 4 or 5 pages they had gotten bored with it, but then I drew 20, 30 more pages after that.
Oh
And then
wow,
I'd
yeah.
show it to them, and I'm like, look guys, I added to the story. Do you guys want to add to the story? Oh no, you got it. You can keep going. You got it under control. And but they would read it and they would really like it. So that was something that was just kind of always there. And as I continued growing, my love for the medium just continued to grow with me, and didn't really feel like I was ready to tell a story in a complete way until I had gotten through most of my 20s, my late 20s, and said, okay, now I think I'm really ready to to start to start really creating comic books rather than
Hmm.
just writing some stories down, drawing in my sketchbook, coming up with ideas, really ready to tell the story using sequential art.
Hmm.
So I started reaching out to some of the really small press, like super small press books, saying, "Hey, if you need a 6 pager for an anthology, I'm your guy. If you need a one shot issue done, I'm your guy." And I did that for, I'd say, probably about a year before I said, I think I'm ready to do my own stuff.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
And then from there, yeah, the Offspring started, and I haven't stopped. I have 25 issues into the Offspring, and like I said, multiple other titles that I'm sure we'll talk about. But I always say that with a title like the Offspring, it's a long storytelling. My plan is 54 issues,
Hmm.
and I'm like I said 25 into it, so I'm halfway there, and I know that can be scary for a lot of readers. An independent comic book creator trying to do long form storytelling like that, thinking, well, are they gonna finish it? Because sometimes you'll see they get 4 issues done and you never hear from them again. They get 1 issue done, you never hear. You start it and you never get a chance to finish it. But I always say that come hell or high water, you'd have to chop my hand off, and I'd still draw with figure out how to draw with my foot if didn't have any hands. So that's what I always tell people. And there are other things that I do to be able to kind of bridge the gap of people not wanting um, to start a long form story in independent comics. But and we'll talk about that soon. But that's kind of where I started and where I am right now, and I couldn't be happier. Very supportive. My wife and kids are saying, "Oh, dad's in the den. Leave him alone for a couple hours." So it's been real
In
fun.
the studio. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's cool. That's very cool. And great that you found supportive voices along the way, and the passion definitely comes through. So glad to hear that you're making the journey through the stories that you want to tell.
yeah. I've always had people that I went to a Catholic private school till I was probably 8th grade, and they didn't have an art teacher. Art class was the regular classroom teacher throwing us paper and pencil and crayons and saying, "I don't know, draw something." That was
Hmm.
art
Hmm.
class for probably the first 9 years or so. So once I hit high school and actually had an art teacher, it kind of blew up from there. And she was one of the people that Miss Peterson was her name, and if she was one of the people that really helped me to understand that art was more than drawing pretty pictures. It was communicating. It was communicating ideas, and that's something that I tell my students today.
Yeah, yeah. When it gets at that fact that comics are these still images that could be on their own, but somehow when you link them
Mhm.
together, there's that sequential story. So
Yeah, yeah.
very cool, very cool. I'm curious about the logo behind you and
Sure.
kind of your relationship to correct-handed comics and uh, is this your brand? Is this your company?
Yes.
Cool, cool.
Yeah,
All
it's my brand. And I'm a lefty. I'm left-handed. So as growing up, I would start probably about 18 years old. I started working in the restaurant business,
right.
and did up until my late 20s. And people every shift for every hour on the hour, someone would say, he's a lefty. Oh, he's a lefty." And they would make jokes about left-handed people having the devil in them, or tying my arms down to not write with my left hand, so I would be right-handed. And I would laugh and those things. But by I'd say my second year of waiting tables, I'd heard all the left-handed jokes, all of them.
Yeah.
So I started saying, "Well, I'm not left-handed. I'm correct-handed." So right-handed and there's correct-handed, and people would go, "Oh, correct-handed, oh, really funny." And some people would actually get very frustrated by it. I'm not really sure why, but it always just kind of caught me as funny to be
Hmm.
able to say that. So when I started my comic book company, I had a few ideas for names and for images that I thought would stand out.
Hmm.
And somewhere on the line, I had 3 or 4 kind of milling about, and I liked them, but I, wasn't quite ready to pull the trigger on them yet. And somewhere along the line, that correct-handed joke popped up again. That's it. It's a great visual. It's correct-handed comics. I think I'm done. I'm done thinking about it. So by the end of that night, I had the logo made up and ready to go, and was sharing it out to whoever would look at it. And it stuck, and I think it does. I think it stands out. I think it's a nice,
Hmm.
simple, solid logo, and I think a lot of people at cons. I get at least 25, 30 people at conventions walking up, go, "Oh, correct handed, so left handed." Like, oh, correct-handed. I'm going to use that. I'm going to start saying I'm correct-handed. And I said, yeah, do it. We'll take over the world.
That's right. That's right. And show them the business card. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned conventions there. Before we talk storytelling, curious about the spaces that you tend to go to most often if folks want to connect and see you in person and kind of flip through the books and things.
Yeah, it's I'm in a very rural area of upstate New York, so conventions are kind of few and far between here. What's funny is right before COVID, I was starting to make the break of the into try to get to 2 or 3 conventions in a year,
Hmm.
and then COVID hit and they all got canceled.
Yeah.
So now I'm able to. There's one that I do every single year. AnchorCon. It's about 20 minutes north of Watertown, New York. And if you know where Watertown, New York is, you throw a stone and hit Canada. So it's pretty far out there. But there are other conventions that I hope to get a table and to start flexing my muscles a little bit that way to be able to spread the word a little bit more. I'm working on also, like I said, I'm pretty rural area, so uh, um, comic book shops are few and far between up here.
Mhm.
I've got Watertown and Utica and Syracuse, where my plan is now to start getting some of my content in trade paperbacks into some of these comic book shops to be able to continue to get eyes on the book. And it's I'm always trying to go to that next step, go to that next level, and that's where I am right now. So it's going pretty good. I think I'm slowly but surely. And every once in a while, I take 10 steps forward, and then I have to stop for whatever reason and take a breath, and then 3 steps forward again, and then stop, take a breath. But it's
Mm.
worked out well for me.
Nice, nice. When it comes to the stories that you tell, I know that there's definitely a science fiction thread that comes through. Superheroes
Mm-hmm.
are part of the world that you create, and so I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious about the storytelling that you're most attracted to as far as genre or themes or however you want to take that up.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons that I started and I kind of formed the story of The Offspring the way that I did is because I'm a huge fan of so many different genres.
Hmm.
I can't really say if I had to pinpoint my 2 favorite genres, it'd be sci-fi and western.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I also love superheroes and weird to admit, I guess, but like romance on some level. So there's always that mystery. I love mysteries. I was a big fan of Perry Mason growing up and Murder She Wrote. To love Angela Lansbury and those kind of. So it was always for me when I started developing The Offspring when I was about 16 or 17 years old. I wanted to come up with a concept that was very grounded in reality, where the people felt really real,
Hmm.
which is any writer's plan. But also have a story that where I can jump genres, where it would make sense to the story and not just throwing them in for no reason. So when I started creating these characters, I very much was very aware of how am I going to get. I knew the kind of stories I wanted to tell, but how was I going to get from genre to genre and have it make sense? Whether one, 3 or 4 issue story arc is monsters and craziness, then the next story arc is very sci-fi time travel. Then the next story arc is more of a thriller. Where it's more of like a mystery thriller type thing. And how do I get there? So I think that I through the process of having years to be able to develop these characters and the storylines. I think I came up with something that was really fun and really different to be able to have these characters not only feel real because they still people I grew up with for the most part, and based off of people that problems that they had that weren't going to go away anytime soon. So
Hmm.
giving them that grounded in reality feel. And I wanted to tell characters stories with characters that maybe they weren't going to fix their problems with 1-2 punch or some sci-fi gobbledygook jargon that Geordi the Forge flails out and go, we can do this, Captain, and great, it's solved.
Right.
Their problems that they're constantly dealing with are problems that aren't going to get fixed in a 23, 24 page issue of a comic book. They're the problems that you don't solve, but you learn to deal with, and
Yeah.
you grow, with the problems, and you grow as a person. And that's really the kind of story that I wanted to tell, wrapped inside of monsters and sci-fi and time travel and all those things. So I would say with the 25 issues of The Offspring that I have, I think I'm very pleased, very proud of the way that I've kind of weaved in and out monsters and time travel and action and adventure and thrillers, but also giving the story and the characters real heart, um,
Mm.
giving them flaws, giving things that most people problems that most people can relate to. And I think that's the one thing that I'm most proud of The Offspring. And now with issue 25, which I'm calling the end of season 2, so 2026 coming out next year is the beginning of season 3. Um, I think that I got my 3 main characters
Hmm.
to a place where they really trusted each other, which was not easy because these 3 characters didn't trust anybody at the beginning. Um, but so now with issue 25, it's time to throw a wrench into that. And there's a
Yeah.
4th character who I've hinted at throughout the time that these 3 characters were they were linked together. They knew they were linked together. They resisted it. They didn't like each other. They had all these things coming at them that they needed to solve before they could talk through these issues or fight through these issues. But they didn't know there was a 4th. So
Hmm.
having this 4th character coming in here, where the first 3 characters, Vince, Will, and Sarah, are now in a place where they do trust each other, and having fourth character come in now is really like a wrench in the works that you always want to have in there from time to time. So,
Yeah.
so I'm really excited to be able to have these 3 characters. Have this 4th character now that comes in and just throws a wrench in everything and makes them kind of really rethink why they trust each other and how they trust each other and what that means to trust each other in these circumstances where they're being now thrust time over and over again. So it's been really fun, really exciting, really sometimes frustrating. How do I get there from here to here? How do I get them from this point to this point? But that's part of the fun. It's been real fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's good when you enjoy it as the creator and when you're telling the story that you would want to read. I've heard a lot of people say that. Um, so we've talked about Offspring, the Offspring. Any other titles that you would want to just give a quick shout out to for listeners out there that might be curious?
Yeah, I have a one-shot series, and you
Hmm.
talked about it a little bit. I won't stop. Shady Lee, do my homework. Hawthorne, and there's one more in there that I am blanking on right now. Oh, gosh, that's bad. That I should be blanking on. But my one-shot series was really something that I created because of my love of Sock Hop Killer. Let me
Hmm.
say this. Let me say them all again. So my one-shot series, Shady Lady, I won't stop, which was superheroes, like you said. Shady Lady is more of a noir thriller.
Hmm.
Will Aliens Do My Homework, which is a 4th grade art teacher, and they get attacked by aliens, and she's got to save her class from aliens. Sock Hop Killer, which is a 1950s this poodle skirt wearing killer, kind of like my homage to Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and those kind of Friday the 13th. And then Clowns, you can't go wrong with Clowns and Vampires, my Hawthorne, which is written by a great friend of mine who does my on The Offspring, Patrick Daniel. And it's really the idea for the one shot series was one, my love of different genres. And I knew that some of these stories I wanted to fit into The Offspring. So I kind of saw it as a bridge for people who maybe struggled with 25 issues of an independent comic book, to
Hmm.
be able to get a chance to be able to buy a one shot here, one shot there, to be able to see if they liked my style, to be able to see if they liked my writing, the kind of stories I was telling, and hopefully that could be a bridge for them to say, okay, I liked Williams do my homework. Let's see the first 4 issues of The Offspring, and see if it catches my attention, and hopefully it does.
Yeah, yeah. Now you very often play the role of writer, artist. You wear multiple hats, but I know that you do bring in
Mm.
collaborators as well. So curious about any collaborators that you would want to shout out.
Yeah, I try to. Part of the reason that I am a one man band for the most part, other than the two great editors that kind of flip back and forth with me to be able to make sure all my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed. The reason I'm a one man band is just for one, I enjoy it to be able
Mhm,
to, from beginning to end, from scratch, create something that's all my own. But I really do enjoy brainstorming with other people, with other creative people, to be able to come up with something funny or weird or silly or whatever it is. Great case in point is the sock hop killer.
mhm, mhm.
I was running through the woods one day and doing my running workout that I don't do as much as I should anymore. And you get that feeling in the back of your neck, you know what I mean? Like you're like that chuch haha type feeling. Like what? I don't feel like I'm alone. It's probably a raccoon looking at me. But let me look around real quick. And I thought, well, gosh, I gotta do something. Like that kind of story, like that stalker through the woods or whatever it is. And it was listening to Buddy Holly and the Crickets. So it was like 1950s. That's a good era that I don't think has been really utilized in the slasher genre that I've seen anyway. So I
Mhm.
started thinking about visuals and the little neckerchief scarf and the poodle skirt. I'm like, that's perfect. Let's do that. So I had some trouble coming up with. So I had the visuals, I had the idea, but I didn't really have a story. So I had some trouble coming up with a story. So I called up a buddy of mine who I'm a big fan of, like haunted history, ghost hunters, like that kind of stuff. And there's a guy like Podolsky who does the Everlasting Haunts podcast. And him and I had talked here and there about some stuff, and we had kind of just on Facebook message each other back and forth about some fun haunted stuff and scary stuff. So I called him up and I told him the idea, and he's listening. And I stopped with everything I had, and after I stopped, he started. And within 15 minutes, we had not only the first story, but enough for 3-4 issues
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
sock hop killer. So I said, this is all great. Let me go back and write this down. I'll forward it to you. Let's compile this into 23 pages, and try to get as much as we can by not overpacked it, and let's use the rest for something later if it's a success.
Mhm.
So it was really one of those times where the person that I called, who was also creative, latched on right away to what I was trying to do, and had
Nice.
so many great ideas I didn't even think of. And he's currently still working on issue 2 and 3. Actually, trying to do like a trilogy thing. I think it's going to be really, really fun. But the Sock Hop Killers came out so great that I don't think I wouldn't want to do a 2 and 3, just because it was such an easy process of creating things. And that's really, really what I like to do. If I'm writing with somebody, or even giving somebody another chance or the chance to draw something that I wrote, I want it to be as pleasant an experience as possible. Not saying there can't be strife or arguments
Mhm,
about
mhm.
what the story should be, but it's really fun for me to be able to have those brainstorming sessions with other creatives to be able to come up with something from scratch. And Paul did a great job, and I couldn't be more proud. The Sock Killer, I think, is one of the best of my one shot series. While I think they're all good, the Sock Hop Killer is one of the ones that I enjoy the most.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And that's another example of how you work across genre and love the story of collaboration as well. I think
Right.
I only have one more official question, and that is the .com behind you, places where people can connect and see. As I mentioned, your work is very accessible, but curious about the places that are best for people to go to find out more.
Yeah, you can go to cracked.com, and I have links to everything I've ever created there. You can find links to my Facebook page at Crackdown Comics, Instagram, Crackdown Comics, social media, TikTok. Twitter, which is X, I guess now, any of the social media, and you look up Cracktanna Comics, or if you look up my name, David Whalen, that big blue hand. Sometimes it's purple. Sometimes I mess with it and make it purple. For the most part, it's usually blue. And see that big blue hand. That's me. And I'm really excited that I'm hoping, I'm hoping the end of January, early February, I got my second 100 plus pager coming out called Lightspeed. And it's got aliens and starships and laser battles and bad guys, and I think great main character in Leighton Lightspeed and his supporting cast around him. I got a great, great. Sorry, I got a great. Sorry, Jason, I'm trying to think of the word.
Oh, you're good.
My editor, there we go. Let me start over. My editor contacted me when he was editing the book and gave me a great compliment. It's the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me a great compliment where he was editing the book and he found himself just reading, and he wasn't editing the book anymore. He just was turning the page to try to get to the next part to be able to see what happened. He's like, I usually don't stop editing, even if I'm enjoying what I'm reading. He's like, I usually don't stop editing, but these, the first 25 pages. This was in the first 25 pages. I'm 90 right now, so I'm hoping, like I said, in the next couple months. But he said that I did something I usually don't do. I stopped editing. I read it because I just read what was going to happen next. And he's like, I had to go back. And I had to go back and make sure that everything was edited properly. And I said, that's a great compliment. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That not only that you liked it, but that he's taking the time to be able to make sure that I'm, like I said, crossing all my I's and dotting all my T's. So great. So that's coming out hopefully late January, early February. So look for all that on Facebook and there's some preview pages on the website and some other links and things like that on Facebook and on TikTok and on X to be able to see all that stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that is a wonderful compliment, and glad to talk with you, David. Glad to have you on, and glad to share about your work and to hear about the updates that are in the future as well.
Thanks so much, Jason, for having me on. I really appreciate you taking the time.